Okay, while I was setting up for my next video, I had previously mentioned in that Nintendo 64, the video regarding this device, the PlayStation 1 and Nintendo 64, PlayStation 1, Nintendo 64 to PC via USB device, which I'll be plugging in right now, again, that I may have had another Nintendo 64 controller, and I do, and it is a third-party one with a bit of an interesting, more streamlined design to it. It's actually a nice-looking controller. It really is a nice controller. I think it actually even feels, this analog stick actually feels better than the Nintendo 64 official one. The D-pad, not so much, but the analog feels nice. It's comfortable, and I don't know. I mean, maybe it's a. I don't know if it's a probably not a better controller, but I don't know. I've not used it much, and I'm gonna see if this. I want to see, does this. My question is, does this work? Assuming that this is a working controller, that is, because it may be broken. I don't know. I don't have a real Nintendo 64 to test it on. But assuming that this controller works, does this function on this adapter? So again, let's put this in the Nintendo 64 mode. This light on the right indicates that the Nintendo 64 controller is selected. Take the plug, which is Nintendo 64 plug, plug it in here, which is awkward to do with one hand. It's very difficult. Let's see if I can do it. Not too easily. I lean it up against my right elbow. And I got it in there. Okay, so let's take a look at what we have here. We have Nintendo 64 controller plugged into this adapter. There's the Nintendo 64 controller, there's the wire, there's the plug. Then this, in turn, is plugged into the PC. And the PC is here. It gives me an error message about the controller. Yeah, I know about that. Alright, let's go back to the controller here at the top. And let me zoom in. And you see it's going all wild here. This doesn't look too promising, does it? That thing is going nuts. Let's switch it to the PlayStation 1 side, see if it stops going nuts. Okay, you see it has stopped going completely wild. Now I'm going to turn it on. And while I turn it on, you're going to see what happens. I'm going to tell you when I switched it. Oh, look, it's going nuts. Alright, I don't think this controller is going to work. But I'm not sure why. Maybe there's some turbo fire on here or something. Let's see. We got a slow motion button here. And it's still going nutty. I have an auto button here. That doesn't do anything. I probably have to push a button with auto. But, this doesn't look like it's going to work. I'll just show you how nutty this thing's going. I'm pushing nothing on this controller. It is simply, by its own accord, going wild. So if I plug this in and I actually put the game on, the game would be going nuts. I think this is not going to work, no matter what I do. But we'll test it with the game, just for fun here. There's nothing that I can do to stop this. This should not be doing this. This is how Windows is reading this device. Windows is reading that this device, which my hands are off, are doing all these things. So it's not really much of a human interface device at this point, because it's not acting as if a human is controlling it. No, wrong file here. Okay, here's the executable. Let's load the emulator and see what happens. Load the game, Mario Kart again. Make it full screen. This thing should be going nuts. Let's see what it's gonna do. Let me zoom out so you can see it. Okay, it's going nuts. It went to versus mode. Now it's back at the start menu. I am not pushing on the controller at all. This is simply what it's doing. Can I somehow get through it by rapidly pushing start? I don't think it's going to obey any of my commands. I put it on slow motion, which rapidly pushes the start button, I think, by default. Will it actually start the game? I don't think it's doing anything. And I think it's asking the second player to select the player. The second player is not even selected. There's no controller input for the second player. I don't think it's ever going to get out of this loop, but this is what this controller is doing. So, to conclude, shut that emulator off. To conclude, this controller, assuming it's working, assuming that it would work on a actual Nintendo 64 console and work properly, assuming that, which is an assumption, then this device here is not compatible with this controller and may not be compatible with other third-party controllers. So very much unlike the last, or the preceding PlayStation adapter controller, where I showcased this device, and I showcased 3 different third-party controllers, all of which functioned with this device, and which function on games, or do function on games, because I've tested them on games. I didn't show you each one working on a game, but I did show you them all on the control panel input in Windows, and they all do function. So, assuming that this thing is working, which again I guess is an assumption, assuming that this does function on the actual system, then this does not function on this device. And this may indicate that other third-party Nintendo 64 controllers may not work with this device. So if you have a favorite third-party Nintendo 64 controller, and I have no idea what exists that couldn't be replicated otherwise, but again, if you wanted like turbo or something, it says auto, but I don't know who would want slow motion. Especially with the more advanced games of the Nintendo 64, where you push start, it doesn't just pause it, it brings up a menu screen, and then you're pushing on the D-pad and you're getting out of the menu, you're getting out of the game or something. I don't know, maybe it does work on some games slow motion, but I think by Nintendo 64 era, the start button was more than just a simple pause. However, I'm not certain of that. So it's a shame. I mean, this controller seems pretty interesting. And it doesn't seem, it seems like it's in good condition. I did get it used at a flea market, but but you know, they sell a lot of junk there at flea markets. I mean, a lot of broken stuff. So I don't know what to say. It's a shame it doesn't work, but it may not work because it's simply incompatible with this device. So that concludes this appended or additional video to the more detailed evaluation that I did of this particular kind of Nintendo 64 and PlayStation 1 and possibly 2 adapter for the PC that, of course, again connects by USB. So that concludes this small additional video. Goodbye.